So you can say on the right side here, the rule is just going to be that expression that has the x value in it. And so if you're used to using an expression, again, that's just a term multiplied, and then you add addition or subtraction. And then please remember, always, always, always use those parentheses when you plug in that value. Again, it was on the warm-up where you replace that x value with whatever your solution is. So for example, the first one would be this. So if you want to pause here and copy this down, you certainly can. So assuming you copy this down, again, this whole entire thing is your function. So this entire equation is your function, where only the right side is that rule. So when we are copying this down, again, we're just going to have always let x be equal to those values, because we can choose these values, and it's just good to have a few numbers that just work out and that we can use multiple times. So as we plug in this rule, again, all you're going to have is a parentheses where the x was. And so again, if you have the left column, the rule in the middle, and then you're just going to have your input values, so your x's. And so you're going to have -1, 0, 1, and 2. And so again, all you have to do is multiply, add, and subtract carefully, so that way you're good. And so you're going to have 3 times -1 is -3, minus 2 gives you -5. And so your output is going to be that y value. So as you are calculating each of these, you have to be very careful on your operations and everything that you type into that calculator. So now that you have those values in there, if you need to pause, you can double check, see how you get those answers. We now have to plot those points. So please remember how to plot those points. So it makes an ordered pair like this. So our first ordered pair is going to be -1, -5. And so we're going to go left 1 and then down 5. And so we have our point there. And so as you're plotting these points, you're going to kind of notice a pattern. So now that we have these 4 points plotted, you have to draw a line to connect them all. And so that will give you the line of the graph for our function y equals 3x minus 2. And it has in the bottom here VLT. So I said that earlier. That's that vertical line test. And so you can see at any point, I should be able to have a straight line and see if it actually works out. So at any point, it should only hit once. And so since it only hits once, so for example, again, it only should hit 1 point. And so as you're going across, at any point like this, it should only intersect once. So since it does, it passes, and therefore it is a function. On the next example, it says, what is our coefficient? So always remember when you're looking at this expression or rule, try to find that value that you're multiplying by. So if it doesn't have a number there, it's still, you have one of it, and specifically you have a -1. So it's going to be -1 times your x value plus 3 for each of those rules. Just like before, you plug in your x values. And so for the first one, it would be -1 times -1, which is +1, plus 3 is 4. Again, as you go through these, it's very simple to be able to calculate. And so once you have all 4 points, you can plot those. So again, make sure you're seeing that it has those ordered pairs for each of them. So your x value is -4, or excuse me, your x value is -1, and your y value is 4. So when we go to plot that point, it's going to be 1 step to the left, 4 steps up. Once you have that point plotted, you can plot the other ones. And so we're going to have 0, 3, 1, 2, and 2, 1. And so you're kind of noticing that pattern as it's going down. So always draw that line through the points plotted, and make sure when you draw that line, you're going the whole way through. Because, hey, what if you're given a graph and you need to say, okay, what's a solution to this function y equals -x plus 3? And so you would say, well, I see that it's hitting all these points. So any little point in here, even if it's decimal, even if it's a fraction, you can say that, hey, maybe I wonder if -2, 5 would work. Well, first off, you have to get it right. So it's going to be 5, -2. And then you would be able to plug in 5. And so it would be 5 times -1 is -5. Plus 3 would be on that point, -2. So again, we have our vertical line test. And so all we're seeing, is this actually a function, or is this just a relation? So as we're going across any point, it's only hitting once. And so we know that it is good and it passes, therefore it is a function. So at this time, you can pause, maybe kind of gather everything together, make sure you're good on the last example. If you need to rewind, you can certainly rewind, or you can pause and make sure you have all this copied down moving forward. So on the last example, right away, you're already saying, hey, I'm defeated. Well, no, you're not. Stick in there. It's only a fraction, and you can change it to a decimal. So if you need to change it to a decimal, you certainly can, as long as you have the same value. So it's going to be y equals 0.5 times x plus 1 is going to be your function, and your rule is going to be 0.5 times a value plus 1. Again, just like before, we have our rule, we have our x values. Again, you calculate carefully. And so what happens here? So we're going to have 0.5 times -1 is -0.5, plus 1 is going to be 0.5. So even though it's a decimal, it's still going to be fine. Okay? That you were able to plot those points just like we did before. So once you have them on the graph, someone said, hey, what do I do? I'm so defeated, I don't know what to do. It's only 0.5 up. So even though there's not a value there, you can say, hey, it's about halfway there. So it's moving up 0.5 at a time. So now that you have those points plotted, draw the line through the graph, check to see if it's a vertical line test, to see if it's a function. It only passes through one point at a time. It doesn't intersect anymore. And so you know it is a function. If you have any questions, please do pause, gather yourself, see where you're at, ask a good question, make sure you understand, then move forward. So at the bottom, it has your x values. And so if you want to pause here and just be able to kind of copy down what you have.